better than ever. No introductions needed. Let's jump right into some football, guys. First of all, let's break down the game. So from last Friday, Steven, you had the GTS game of the week. When you're talking about Abbeville versus Ware Shoals, Chris said that the referees were probably, kind of messed up Ware Shoals' chances of winning the game. I've talked to you. You said that it probably wouldn't have mattered either way. Abbeville's really too strong of a team. When you're looking at that game, give me a review of what you saw.
Well, I think the game was called fairly. Either way, I still think the Panthers would have came out with the win. But I do admit, Ware Shoals, they came ready to play. Abbeville, not so much. And I don't know. I feel like the Panthers are struggling a little bit right now. I don't know if that loss 2 weeks ago to Woodruff is still in the back of their minds. But and then they've been without their star fullback, Darrell Elmore, the last 2 games because he's been suffering with an injury. But, Mr. Enright, who plays running back, the senior, and he also plays on the defensive side as well, has really been stepping up for the Panthers over the last 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago against Lincoln County, he returned a fumble, 79 yards for a touchdown that put the Panthers up by 2 touchdowns at half. And, the defense is playing well too. And also this past week, Enright ran for 3 touchdowns, 3 of the 5 Panthers rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, and Abbeville, when you're talking about Abbeville, I think they'll be favored in the rest of their games coming up. The Ware Shoals game was a good start to it. Region play should be a pretty much a breeze for them. No teams really in there that's going to really compete with Abbeville, caliber of Abbeville. But a team that is in Abbeville's region that wants to compete with them, but really this year is more of a rebuilding year for them. I move over to my left. James Spikes, he's been diligently covering the Emerald Vikings. I know a lot of times you probably don't want to, as bad as it gets, but they are showing a lot of heart, James. But first, let's go back and review a game that where the referees played a big part in the Bowling Springs game. Talk to me a little bit about that game.
Well, Emerald came out ready to play, like I said in my report, and I guess it shot Bowling Springs to begin with, and it shot more than Bowling Springs, it shot the referees as well. The referees were like, no sir, we're not having this, because it was 10-0 after the first quarter. So the referees decided they were going to take it in their own hand. It was a lot of missed calls. It was a lot of bad calls. It was like drive-ending calls. Not just like, well, he could be holding, he could not be holding. It's like when they held, our defensive players would turn completely around, and the quarterback's running this way, and the offensive guy had his shirt out at least 3 feet. Obvious calls. And then one big drive stopper was one time we had threw a 40-yard bomb down the right side, and it was an amazing catch. And the referee from behind the catch, they couldn't even see what was going on, made the call. And there was another ref looking directly at the catch, seeing it was a catch. He waited to see what this man was going to call on the call, and just threw everything off because he didn't want him to have a catch. It was ridiculous.
Emerald does play good. It's always something. That's just the way it is when you're struggling on offense and defense. The Vikings get another shot this week, though, against Pendleton. Let's move across town to the Greenwood Eagles. They played Sumter. They're having some struggles also. They're playing some better competition, much like Emerald. They played Sumter this past Friday, lost 10-0. Another struggle for the offense. It was under 200 yards of offense once again for the Eagles. That makes 3 straight weeks where the offense has kind of struggled to get its bearings and trying to hit these receivers. Injuries has a lot to do with it. Tough defenses has a lot to do with it. Possibly 9 D1 prospects for Sumter. James, you're an ex-football player. When your offense is struggling, I know Ware Shoals probably, when their offense was struggling, they just kept running the ball. But when you're an offense like Greenwood High, you're facing tough defenses. What are some of the things they can do to maybe get the offense going a little bit?
One thing they can do, them as well as Emerald, is try to bring the quarterback back some, put him in the shotgun, give him more time to survey the field if the offensive line is not stepping their job up. And to me, Emerald needs to bring the quarterback back some, because that'll give him more time to see what's going on. But if they back him up and they see he can't do it with his arm, just stick to the run game. Do simple runs every now and then, and just keep going at it until you get those runs down, and then you can expand your offense. And then on the other side of the ball, just stick to what you know on defense. Don't try to do anything fancy. Just play hard-nosed football.
Yeah. Move over to my right. Steven, let's talk about this 96 Wildcats, your alma mater. James was talking about the running game, and I think Newberry is probably still running past 96 in their own minds as bad as it got. Over 440 yards on the ground for Newberry. It was really a big day. The Wildcats, we know they've had problems stopping the run. They had problems stopping against Emerald. Eric Spencer still running plays through the Wildcats' head. I think that was his biggest day of his career. When you're talking about 96 right now, Trey Smith did come back in the Newberry game. What do you see when you're covering the Wildcats? You have seen them this year, so.
Well, it does seem like the Wildcats are struggling a little bit on defense, but they are playing bigger teams, teams outside of their region. But I think playing these 2A teams are going to be good for when they get into region play, because they've seen some bigger teams now, which should prepare them for the 1A schedule.
Yeah, and speaking of 96, since we haven't reached the midpoint of the season, we're about to jump into region play. A couple of questions for the guys. Anybody can answer. We're talking about biggest surprise this year up to this point of the season. Who y'all think the biggest surprise team is?
I think the biggest surprise team is Abbeville coming out with the L for the year. Because most people didn't think they would have any. They thought they were going to go undefeated for the whole season, and then even up to the state championship. Because they thought that was the team of all teams. So that's my biggest surprise.
And when you're talking biggest disappointment, I might go over to your side again with the purple and gold. I mean, I think all of us thought by now they would have had at least one victory, and they had chances against 96. And then I think the Ware Shoals game was also a winnable game, even though the scoreboard might not show it. But would they be your biggest disappointment too?
They would be, because at first, I'll be first to admit, when I got told that I was doing Emerald, I was like, man, this isn't going to be too fun. But being in the stands sometimes and hearing the crowd and how much they're into the game, and it's heartbreaking when they lose a game that they think they're supposed to win, or they should win because they come out and play so hard.
Moving over to the team closest to a state championship, I'm going to have to go back to the Abbeville Panthers, and when I'm talking about Abbeville Panther football, I'm going to throw it over to Stephen Miller. Stephen, why are the Panthers, even with the loss to Woodruff, why are they still the closest team in our area to a state championship?
Well, I definitely think they'll get back to the state championship. I definitely believe that they will make a deep run into the playoffs. Woodruff, they had a 1-point loss at Woodruff. That game was packed. Woodruff had a full crowd. Abbeville had a full crowd. They only lost by 1 point, and I think the Panthers were even up by a touchdown or 2 touchdowns to Woodruff at one point in the game. And Woodruff's probably one of the better teams, one of the top teams in 2A, and even one of the top teams in the state. And for Abbeville to only lose by 1 to Woodruff is pretty good. And as the season keeps progressing, both teams are going to get better. So I definitely see the Panthers getting back to William Bryce and hopefully winning the state championship.
Speaking of getting better, we're at the midpoint of the season. Nobody has made a prediction right this year. Nobody has got them all right. But I'm expecting that to change after this commercial break when we make our picks.